Variation is in the nature of nature. It is found almost everywhere around us. It is a normal part of life. All natural processes are affected by intrinsic variation. The faces of no two men presently living or lived ever on this planet have been found identical. Mutation, the change in the sequence of genes in DNA, is one source of this genetic variation. Even twins' faces, though some of them look almost alike, are not identical. Not only this, that everyone's face is different from others. They also differ in their speech, way of walking, tastes, emotions, and in every other modes of behavior. Other living beings also of the same species differ from one another. No two members of a species are identical. Not all fruits on a particular tree are of exactly the same size, shape, and taste. Not all flowers, all leaves on a plant are found identical. We recognize spots on a giraffe as a pattern, but they are not regular. Nor any of the spots are of same size and shape. All around us, we see a great diversity of living things, from microscopic to gigantic, from simple to complex, from bright colors to dull colors. The lifespan of all human beings and also of other living beings, plants, other things, consumable or non-consumable, vary from one to other. In nature, no matter how hard we try, there can never be two identical actions that generate exactly the same result. Even temperature, duration of days and nights, speed and positions of planets, etc., keep changing. You remember the day, if you can, you first learned to write the letter A. Only God knows how many A's you might have written since then up to now. One may get surprised if I say that no two of these A's are identical. The repeated measurements of any physical characteristic are also not the same. They do contain errors and so vary. When we start measuring any characteristic of a certain object, we notice that even under similar conditions, we get dissimilar results. The statistical uncertainty of a measurement reflects the fact that every time we make a measurement, we measure a slightly different quantity each time. The tendency for a measured value to jump around from measurement to measurement is the statistical error. In this context, Galileo, who belonged to the period 1564 to 1642, had once remarked, measures, measures, measure again and again to find out the difference and difference of the difference. Gauss, who belonged to the period 1777 to 1855, after about 200 years, suggested how to combine the measurements to find an estimate of unknown magnitudes. Variation is everywhere. And it is this variation that have given birth to statistics and brought it up to the present level, making it so serviceable, so useful. Statistics is a science of variation. Its main purpose is to deal with variations that occur around us and to get it analyzed. Statistics, unlike other mathematical and physical sciences, is least concerned about constants and mainly deals with variables. Other mathematical and physical sciences also deal with variables, but only with those variables which vary according to certain laws. Statistics deals with those variables which are random. When variables do not assume their values according to certain laws. Certainly, dealing with such variables may be more difficult than dealing with those which follow certain laws. How much complex and challenging the task of statistics is can be assessed by this fact that it sometimes tries to deal with the behavior of more than one such variables at a time. Multivariate analysis, which is an important branch of statistics, deals with the treatment of data sets with a large number of dimensions. It attempts to study the simultaneous behavior of a group of variables which may not be independent of each other. Rather, amongst which some may be governed by some others. Statistics tries to find out that to what extent one variable is influencing the others and in what manner. It tries to find out the degree of relationship between not only two individual variables, but between two multivariate sets of variables, which is known as canonical correlation. For understanding the trends and patterns, it tries to simplify the complexity in high dimensional data through what are known as principal components. Like principal components, factor analysis is also used to reduce the dimension of multivariate data. Discriminant analysis is used to classify observations into non-overlapping groups based on scores on one or more quantitative variables. For example, a doctor could perform a discriminant analysis to identify patients at high or low risk for a stroke. As I told you earlier, this world is full of variations. Although these variations are found at the individual level, we find some stability in the nature of average of a mass of individuals. According to a law in statistics, which is known as law of large numbers, the average of the results obtained from a large number of trials is close to the expected value and tends to become closer to the expected value as more trials are performed. This law is important because it generates stable long-term results for the averages of some random events. For example, in the tossing of a fair coin, the law of large numbers stipulates that the probability of getting a head will eventually be close to 0.5. Hence, if the first 10 tosses produce only 3 heads, it seems that some unknown force somehow has decreased the fraction of heads. The law of large numbers requires no such mystical force. The fraction of heads can take a very long time to approach 0.5. Thus, according to the law of large numbers, uncertainty in the average performance of individuals becomes less and less as the number of individuals becomes more and more. It shows a deterministic phenomenon in a large system. Is it not having certainty in uncertainty? The law of large numbers is an extremely useful result with powerful implications that is applied to a variety of disciplines, including probability, statistics, finance, physical sciences, and others. In the field of cryptography, there is a heavy reliance on probability when trying to decode messages encoded using some specific methods. The English alphabet has a very specific frequency distribution for each individual letter. The law of large numbers implies that the longer the encoded messages, the higher the probability the frequency distribution of each letter approaches the expected value. Similarly, if one wishes to know the probability that a specific word appears in a message or a piece of writing, the law of large numbers implies that this probability increases significantly the larger the length of the message. Another fascinating law that is found in the nature of large data is what is called in statistics as central limit theorem. This theorem states that if we have a population from which we take sufficiently large random samples with replacement, then the distribution of the sample means will be approximately normal. The central limit theorem is important in statistics because it allows us to safely assume that the distribution of the mean will be normal in most cases. This means that we can take advantage of statistical techniques that assume normal distributions. Normal distribution is the most important probability distribution because most of the continuous variables in nature display a normal curve, which is a symmetric bell-shaped curve when values are graphed. What is really powerful about the central limit theorem is that we do not need to know the probabilistic nature of our population. All we need to do is to collect sufficiently large samples that follow the criteria, and we can be sure that the distribution of the sample means will follow normal distribution. The difference between the law of large numbers and the central limit theorem is that whereas law of large numbers assures us of getting the population mean as the sample size tends to infinity, the central limit theorem assures us that the probabilistic law of the sample mean is normal as the sample size tends to infinity. The law of large numbers gives the value of the sample mean, and the central limit theorem tells us the probability law according to which values of sample mean vary. One is about the convergence of the value of sample mean, and the other is about the convergence of the behavior of the sample mean. Both exhibit stability in instability and an order in disorder. Thank you.